ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So here we see a very important element of our bondage is born along with creation. When Brahma is desiring to create, if the living entities have to stay bound in this material world, then he has to create certain things which will bind him in this material world. So, when Brahma became very angry on the four Kumaras, his sons, who did not want to follow the orders of his father, because they did not want to be entangled in materialistic way of life, then from the middle of the eyebrow of Brahmaji, a son was born who was blue and red in color, and who is described here as Rudra. So the moment the son was born, he cried very loudly, very anxiously that you have given me birth, but please also designate me some place and some work where I have to stay, what I have to do. So then Brahma said, do not worry. First of all, because you have cried so anxiously, you will be called as Rudra. And I will give you certain places of residence where you can reside. So then Brahmaji said, even before you were born, I have already planned where all you will stay. See? So how the living entity will be bound in this world, those places is already created by Brahmaji, and that is what is described here. The different places where Rudra principle or anger is generated and which binds the living entity into this material world. So this is what we are going to see in today's purport, what Prabhupada explains very beautifully. You see, Prabhupada explains, the real doctor is one who is able to diagnose not just the symptoms, but the cause of the symptom, the root cause of those symptoms. Say, for example, you are having pain in your throat, you are coughing, you are having fever. If you go to the doctor may prescribe some tests for you, some blood tests, urine tests, all those things. And he wants to find out what is the cause of these symptoms, because these symptoms may be caused by varieties of diseases. When you are having asthma also, you may have these kind of symptoms, or when you are having some other disease, same symptoms may appear. So just to mitigate the symptom is not enough. It is very important to find out the cause of your disease. Similarly, it is very important to find out the cause of our disease, Bhavaroga. We are also suffering from disease. Bhavaroga means to be born again and again in this material world. Birth, death, old age, disease. To be trapped in this cycle is called Bhavaroga. So we are also suffering from disease. If we are not able to understand the real cause of our bondage, then it is very difficult to come out of this material disease. So, Arjuna asked this question in Bhagavad Gita to Krishna. In 3rd chapter, Arjuna asked this question. That, my dear Lord, the living entities are bound in this material world by different reactions of sinful activities we perform. Correct? Why are we bound? We create actions and reactions. What are these actions which are not in Krishna consciousness? They are called sinful actions. So when a living entity performs sin, papa karma, then we suffer reactions of those sins and we have to take up different kinds of body in this material world. So we become bound in material misery. So then Arjuna asked a question to Krishna. My dear Lord, please tell me, what is the cause of living entities to act sinfully? Why the living entities act sinfully? And not only they act sinfully, they act as if they are forced to act. Not only they are forced to act, sometimes they don't want to act, but still looks like something is forcing them to act like that, sinfully. Like even in Krishna consciousness, not that the devotees, sometimes Prabhupada gives the example that from Western countries the devotees joined in Krishna consciousness. Earlier they were smoking, they were drinking. After joining Krishna consciousness, they all gave up their bad habits. But sometimes, because of the past habits, again that impulsion comes, again that kind of thinking comes, that desire comes. And sometimes they are impelled to act. Again they meet some of their old friends and they are smoking, they are drinking. And in their association he also goes and smokes and drinks. So he does not actually want to act sinfully, but something is there which is forcing a person to act sinfully. This is the question which is asked by Arjuna. It's a very interesting question. Arjuna uvacha athakena prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha anichchanapi varshneya baladiva niyojitaha. So he says, athakena prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha. The living entities is impelled to act sinfully by what? Atakena prayuktena. By what the living entity is impelled to act sinfully? Anichchanapi. Sometimes somebody may want to act sinfully, that is different. But somebody may not want to act sinfully, still he is impelled by something. Baladiva niyojisa. Looks like as if something is forcing him to act in that direction. So, in answer to that, Krishna explains the real cause of the living entities to act sinfully. Shri Bhagavan uvacha Kamaesha krodhaesha rajoguna samudbhava mahashano mahapapma Vidhyenam iha vairinam. So then Krishna replies, Kama, which is born of Rajoguna, and this Kama, lusty desires, which later transforms into anger or wrath, Kama esha krodha. Kama esha krodha esha Rajoguna samudbhava. Mahashano. Mahashana means they're all devouring. Mahapapama means not just papa, very sinful, most sinful. Prabhupada uses the word most sinful. Vidhyenam iha vairinam. It is the eternal enemy of the living entity. You see? So what is the root cause of living entities to be bound? Is these lusty desires, which later on turns to krodha. Kama esha krodha esha, which is born out of passion. And this is the one which acts as eternal enemy of the living entities. So Prabhupada translates it very beautifully. The blessed Lord said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material modes of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. So, most sinful, and it will devour our spiritual life. It will bind us to this material world without any freedom to approach back to Godhead. So, in the purport, Prabhupada very beautifully explains. So actually passion is middle, ignorance is down, Sattva guna is upper. So Rajoguna it's in the middle, Tamoguna is below, and Sattva guna is above. It is higher in that sense. The most lowest is Tamoguna. Better than that is Rajoguna. And best among the gunas is Sattva guna. So in the purport, Prabhupada explains that how Rajoguna can either become degraded or it can be also upgraded. Everything begins with this Rajoguna. Everything begins with this lusty desires. Later on it becomes transformed into wrath. Wrath is, anger is more of ignorance. When lust gets transformed into wrath, it is because of the influence of ignorance. The same lust, either it can be transformed into wrath, that means it can become degraded, or it can become upgraded also. How it can become upgraded? Anyone? How it becomes degraded? Let us see. How does it become degraded to Krodha? That we had discussed in the earlier class. When we try to satisfy our desires, and material desires have no satiation, and practically it results into frustration, then what happens? Degrades into wrath. Then we become angry. First we try to satisfy our desires, and then our desires are not satisfied, then we become angry. Krodha develops because of degradation of passion into ignorance. How it can be upgraded? How lust can be upgraded? If lust can be transformed to greed for obtaining Krishna, greed to be engaged in service of Krishna, it can be upgraded. There is a very nice purport in Bhagavatam. I think it is somewhere in the 4th Canto, where Prabhupada beautifully explains about this. How one can become greedy for Krishna and upgrade the lust rather than degrade it to anger or wrath. So there it says in the translation, this is instruction by Narad Muni. The strong bodily desires and needs of a person disturbed by hunger and thirst are certainly satisfied when he eats. These are all called Vegas, right? We have varieties of Vegas. Vacho Vegam, urge to talk. Manasa Krodh Vegam, in mind anger arises and we become angry, then anger comes out in the eyes, it comes out in the fist. All those things is very nicely described. Anger gets generated actually in the heart in the beginning. Later on it becomes transformed through varieties of senses. It is expressed through varieties of senses. The place it is born is in the heart, in the beginning. So, Narad Muni is saying here, the strong bodily desires and needs of a person disturbed by hunger and thirst are certainly satisfied when he eats. You are hungry, then when food comes before us, that is a vague. We want to eat, there is a vague of the tongue. And then once we have eaten it, it becomes satisfied. Thirst, or that is also satisfied when we drink water. If one becomes very angry, that anger is satisfied by chastisement and its reaction. That also you would have seen. Sometimes people are very angry, he's kicking left and right, everything. And then when policeman comes and bangs him left and right, then that anger cools down. Or when he has expressed his anger, isn't it? After some time we find the person becomes, he's cooled down. So, hunger and thirst can also be satisfied. And anger can also be satisfied when we express it through chastisement or the reactions we get. We become angry and then somebody beats us nicely, then we cool down, isn't it? So that anger also becomes satisfied. But as far as greed, even if a greedy person has conquered all the direction of the world or has enjoyed everything in the world, still he will not be satisfied. So as far as greed is concerned, even if he has conquered all the directions, all the 10 directions, or he has enjoyed everything in the world, still greed is not satisfied. You can just imagine actually. What is less with all these wealthy people? Isn't it? Say, for example, Ambanis are there, Birlas are there, Tatas are there. All these people, what is less for them? Crores, multi. But still they are not satisfied. Still they want to increase more and more number of zeros in their bank balance. Isn't it? This is greed. So greed can never be satisfied. So in the purport, Prabhupada very beautifully explains, when strong lusty desires for sense gratification are unfulfilled, one becomes angry. Correct? So, when we want to satisfy our desires and we are not able to satisfy our desire, we become angry. This anger can be satisfied when one chastises his enemy. But when there is increase in lobha or greed, which is the greatest enemy caused by Rajoguna, the mode of passion, how can one advance in Krishna consciousness? So krodha somehow can be satisfied by chastisement. When we express our krodha, it can be satisfied. But how can greed be satisfied? Which is the most sinful enemy. That kama is the most sinful enemy. If one is, so then Prabhupada explains how it can be done. If one is very greedy to enhance his Krishna consciousness, that is a great boon. Tatra lolyam ekalam mulyam. This is the best path available. So, rather than degrading the lust to come out as frustration, as krodha, if we upgrade the lust by becoming greedy to advance in Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada says that is the best path, that is the greatest boon. In this purport also, in Bhagavad Gita purport also, Prabhupada says, rather than upgrading, rather than degrading the lust to ignorance, we can gradually make it upgrade to Sattva Guna, and then finally Shuddha Sattva Guna in Krishna consciousness. So, this is how Krishna explains about this greatest enemy, the lust, which later on transforms into krodha, which is the all-devouring and the most sinful activity of the living entity, which keeps him bound in this material world. So, in the purport, Prabhupada is very nicely explaining about this. We'll just try to understand it a little bit. Prabhupada is saying, in Bhagavad Gita, the principle of Rudra is described. Same verse, Kama Esha, Krodha Esha, Rajoguna, Samudbhava. It's a product of, Krodha is a product of Kama, which is the result of mode of passion. So, mode of passion results into Kama and further results into Krodha. When lust and hankering are unsatisfied, the element of Krodha appears, which is the formidable enemy of the conditioned soul. Now, it's very important. What happens when Krodha is degraded? So, when Krodha is degraded, it will result into, what it will result into? Anyone? All those are there. Mada, Moha, definitely it turns into that. You see, because of this lust getting degraded to Krodha, frustration, varieties of speculative philosophies result. You see. And then the final of that, Prabhupada explains, the result of that is that later on, being confused at all these kinds of philosophy, one becomes impersonalist. You see. That's why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that there are many things which we have to give up in Krishna consciousness. Bhaya, and one of them is also Krodha. So, how Krodha has to be given up? Why Bhaya? Prabhupada explains that how those who are non-devotees or impersonalist, out of fear, they don't want to retain their individuality. Why? They are fearful. They have got bad experience in the material world. I am individual. Because of individuality, there are relations. Somebody is my husband, somebody is my wife, somebody is my children, somebody. And then I am getting problems from all of them. So much suffering is there in this material world. So they have become frustrated with this individuality. When they are informed that in spiritual life also there is individuality, then they get bhaya. They get afraid. That material life was problematic because of individuality. Now you are telling in spiritual life also there is individuality. So they want to merge They want to give up their individuality, merge in Brahman. So this is the result of bhaya. And krodha, seeing that there are so many philosophies in this material world, the person becomes bewildered at all kinds of philosophies. And then in anger gives up all of them. They're all useless. There is nothing existing in the material world. There is nothing called spiritual world. There is nothing called some higher reality. Everything is this material world. So being angered at all kind of philosophy, he becomes an atheist. So this is the result of kama and krodha. And this krodha becomes manifest in varieties of ways. And that is very beautifully explained in today's purport. We'll just see some of them. When lust and hankering are unsatisfied, the element of krodha appears, which is formidable enemy of the conditioned soul. The most sinful and inimical passion is represented as ahankara. So this kama converts into krodha and binds the living entity to ahankara, which is the most formidable enemy. And out of ahankara, the living entity thinks he is all in all. I am the master. It is because of this ahankara. This most sinful and inimical passion is represented as ahankara, or false egocentric attitude of thinking oneself to be all in all. Such an egocentric attitude on the part of conditioned soul, who is completely under the control of material nature, is described in Bhagavad Gita as foolish. Anyone can quote that verse? Where in Bhagavad Gita Krishna calls such a living entity moved by ahankara as foolish? Ahankara vimoodatma kartahamiti manyate. So out of ahankara, the living entity is thinking, I am doing everything. Everything is working like this. So he is not able to understand everything is actually happening by the control of nature. Actually everything is under the control of nature. But he is thinking, he is doing every activity. All these things are carried on by him. So Krishna calls that as foolish. The egocentric attitude is a manifestation of Rudra principle in the heart. So this egocentric attitude that I am all in all, everything is done by me, I am independent of God, or there is no God, this is the egocentric attitude. It's a manifestation of Rudra principle in the heart. So actually the first Rudra principle is born in the heart and it manifests as this egocentric attitude. So the first place which was offered to Rudra is in the heart. So in the heart, this Rudra principles comes out as what? As ahankara. I am all in all. Where is God? Who is God? I am the controller. I will control this material nature. Okay, so this is how it begins. So it begins with this. Then what happens? He tries to control material nature. He tries to satisfy his senses. Then what will happen? The nature of the material world is, it cannot give him satisfaction. He will not be satisfied. Then he becomes angry. Krodha comes out. And Krodha later on becomes manifested through senses. First it comes out as egocentric attitude from the heart. When it is not satisfied, this egocentric attitude is not satisfied by trying to satisfy our senses, trying to grab more and more material assets. When it is not satisfied, then it comes out through varieties of senses. So that very beautifully Prabhupada explains here. This anger develops in the heart and is further manifested through various senses like eyes, hands and legs. See how Prabhupada describes how it is coming out through eyes. When a man is angry, he expresses such anger with red hot eyes. Isn't it? Sometimes you will find When a man is angry, actually you can see the anger in the eyes of a person. How do we recognize sometime when a person is angry? Even though suppose he is not moving his hands and legs, but just by his expression of his eyes itself you can make out the person is very angry. And further later on. And sometimes makes a display of clenching his fist or kicking his legs. Isn't it? With his fist he becomes angry and smashes the desk or something. And sometimes he kicks also with his leg. So that all shows, you will find sometimes, he'll kick a leg, his leg, some object will be there, some table, he wants to break that table with his leg. So that is also expression of his anger. This exhibition of Rudra principle is the proof of Rudra's presence in such places. That means, so now we know Brahma had given him places. Where all? Heart. From how do we know it is present in the heart? How do we know? Egocentric attitude. To think I am the enjoyer. Right? That is coming from the heart. How do we know it is present in the eyes? Rudra principle is present in the eyes. When the man becomes angry, it is expressed through his red hot eyes. How do we know it is present in senses? Other senses, like we can see hand with his fist kicking of the leg. So it is present in the senses also. Then the other thing was the air of life. How it is present in the air of life? Yes, when a man is angry, he breathes very heavily, isn't it? That also you can see. His breath becomes very short, he is breathing very heavily. So that is called in the life air. So it is present in the life air also. When a man is angry, he breathes very rapidly, and thus Rudra is represented in the air of life or in the activities of breathing. How it is present in the sky? Yes, when the sky is overcast and when it is heavily overcast with dense clouds and roars in anger, just like we find when Indra became angry, what did he do? He sent that Samvartaka cloud to roar angrily on Vrindavan, isn't it? So that is also an exhibition of anger. How it is in the air? When the wind blows very fiercely, right? Sometimes we also see, we all become very afraid when the wind is blowing very heavily. It can take off the whole roof itself. Plants become uprooted, the buildings can fall down. The Rudra principle is manifested. In water, especially we can see tsunami, Rudra principle getting manifested. When the sea water is infuriated by wind, it appears in a gloomy feature of Rudra, which is very fearful to the common man. Then fire, that also we see. When fire is ablaze, we can also experience the presence of Rudra. Then earth, either in the form of Bhukampa or in the form of inundation of earth, right? Like we saw in Kedarnath few years, I think it was just 1 or 1.5 years back, we saw how in Kedarnath, Badrinath, the whole earth was inundated. When there is inundation over the earth, we can understand that this is also representation of Rudra. Then there are many earthly creatures. Through that also Rudra principle of earth we can understand. Tiger, snake, lion, they are all representation of Rudra. And then sun is also principle of Rudra. Prabhupada gives the example when the sun becomes too hot, when there is extreme heat, there are cases of heat stroke, right? Now you will find when hot season comes in Delhi side, when in the North India, hot season comes, there is a loo blowing. It's not an ordinary wind. It's a loo. It's called loo means when the heat of the air is too much, the temperature of the wind is too much, that is called as loo. Many people die out of heart stroke heat stroke at that time. So that is also principle of Rudra. Then there are cases of extreme coldness created by the moon. and there are cases of collapses. And then, even in austerity, Prabhupada is giving the example of austerity. Many sages empowered with influence of austerity and many yogis, philosopher and renouncer, who sometimes exhibit their acquired power under the influence of Rudra principle of anger and passion. So, whatever they have acquired through austerity, they express through Rudra principle. Like the great yogi Durvasa, under the influence of Rudra principle, picked a quarrel with Maharaj Amrish, correct? So that also we can see. Brahmana boy, who cursed Maharaj Parikshit, he was also moved by Rudra principle. When the Rudra principle is exhibited by persons who are not engaged in devotional service of Supreme Personality of Godhead, the angry person falls down from the peak of his improved position. See, austerity, what is austerity? Austerity takes us to a higher status of life. Correct? The example is given in Bhagavatam. Ye anye arvindaksha vimuktamaaninas tvayashta bhavad avishuddha buddhayaha ahruya krichrena parampadam tataha patanti adho anadarat yushma dangrayaha. These people, because of their austerities, they have improved their condition of life. They are already traversing towards spiritual way of life. But still, if they do not utilize those austerities in the service of the Lord, then they will get expressed through Rudra principle and it will be a downfall for them. The moment, the Sattva guna of austerity transforms into Rajoguna and it will factually fall down to Tamoguna. So Prabhupada is saying, when the Rudra principle is exhibited by persons who are not engaged in devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the angry person falls down from the peak of his improved position. So that means Rudra principle has not even gone out even from a great sage like Durvasa or such personality, and because of this Rudra principle, they fall down from their position. Only a devotee of the Lord who can utilize all his senses, who can utilize all his desires, and who can utilize even anger in the service of the Lord. Prabhupada gives the example, the greatest example of anger is Arjuna and Hanuman, isn't it? Hanuman also, when he became angry on Ravana, he destroyed the whole Lanka. And we can see how Arjuna, when he became angry, he destroyed the whole of the Kauravas. So, he utilized his anger principle, Rudra principle, in the service of the Lord. And how to utilize our lust principle in the service of the Lord? When we become more and more greedy about being engaged in the service of the Lord, that is how we can upgrade it further. So, this is how it is explained here. We'll stop this. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.